Hi guys, so today we're going to be talking about lesson 1.2, which is all about understanding rational numbers. So first, what is a rational number? A rational number is a number that can be written as a fraction. So for example, 3/4, this is a fraction, so it's a rational number. 0.25, this can be written as a fraction. 1.75 can be written as a fraction. And then 3 1/2 already is in fraction form. So these are all examples of rational numbers. So today we're going to talk about how can we go from a fraction into decimal form, and how can we go from a decimal into fraction form. So how can we write our rational numbers in different ways? So let's begin. Let's go from writing from a fraction to a decimal. So in a class of 18 students, 5 voted to change their mascot. What is the decimal equivalent of students who wanted a change in the mascot? So first we need to write this as a fraction. So total, we have how many students? We have 18. So that's going to be our denominator because it's out of 18 students. And then 5 wanted to change the mascot. So we're going to say 5 out of 18 students wanted to change their mascot. Now to turn this into a decimal, we need to divide. So to divide, since this is 5 out of 18, we're dividing by 18. 18 is going to be on the outside of our division house. And then 5 is going to go inside. Now 18 cannot go into 5. So what we have to do is we have to add a decimal so that we can add a 0 to make that 50. Now, whenever you add a decimal, I want you guys to bring it up directly above in the division house bar, because I don't want you guys to forget where your decimal place is. So always bring the decimal up. So now we can ask ourselves, how many times does 18 go into 50? So how many times does 18 go into 50? It goes in 2 times. And what is 18 times 2? 18 times 2 is 36. So I'm going to subtract 36 from 50 to see what I have left over. And when I subtract that, I have, let me pick a different color here. I have 14 left over. 18 does not go into 14. So I'm going to add another 0, bring that 0 down, and now I have 140. So how many times does 18 go into 140? So it goes in 7 times. 18 times 7 is 126. And when I subtract 126 from 40, I get 14 again. And so what we can gain from this is that we're just repeating here. And if we continue to repeat, it's going to be the same thing. We're still going to get 15, which means that we're always going to have a 7 up here. This means we have a repeating decimal. So I can stop here since I know that I'm going to repeat the same thing over and over again. And I'm going to write this as 0.27 repeating. Now, it's very important to add this repeating bar because this tells you what number is repeating. And notice I only put over the 7 because 7 is the only number that's going to repeat over and over again. The 2 does not repeat. So 0.27 repeating. So that's going from a fraction to a decimal. Let's try a mixed number now. So it says write the rational number in decimal form. So we have -3 2/5, and we want to write this as a decimal. The first thing I notice here is that I have a whole number. So I can start here. I can say I have -3. That's my whole number, and I'm going to add my decimal place right after my whole number. And just a tip, guys, don't forget that negative sign. That's very important. Make sure you remember that negative sign. So now all I have left is 2/5, and I want to turn this into a decimal. So same steps I just did, I'm going to divide here. So I have 2 divided by 5. 5 cannot go into 2, so I'm going to add my decimal. Make sure you bring that decimal place up. Now I can add my 0. How many times does 5 go into 20? It goes in 4 times, and 5 times 4 is 20. So there's nothing left over. When there's nothing left over, this is a terminating decimal because this decimal ends. There's nothing coming after it. So now I'm done. I know 2/5 can be written as 0.4. And so I'm going to tack on that 0.4 over here. So 3 2/5 in decimal form is -3.4. So now that we know how to go from fractions to decimals, let's try going from decimals into a fraction. So first, is 0.375 a rational number? Yes, this is a rational number, and we know it's rational because this decimal is a terminating decimal. It ends, which means we can write it as a fraction. So how do we do that? So 0.375, first we want to find our denominator, and we can do that by finding our decimal place. So you always want to look at the last number. So ours is 5 here, and this is in the tenths, hundredths, thousandths place. So our denominator here is going to be 1,000. I'm going to put 375 as my numerator. So 0.375 as a fraction is 375 over 1,000. But we're not done here because we want to simplify. So let's simplify. What can we divide both 375 by and 1,000 by? So I'm going to think a little bit bigger here. I'm going to divide by 25. If your first thought was to divide by 5, that's great. You can do that. You're just going to take a little bit more extra steps than I am because I'm going with a bigger number. But it's totally fine. Divide by 5 if you want to start with that. You're just going to have to do a couple extra steps. So 375 divided by 25 is 15. And 1,000 divided by 25 is 40. So I'm still not done yet because this can still be simplified a little bit further. So what could I divide both 15 and 40 by? I can divide by 5. So 15 divided by 5 is 3, and 40 divided by 5 is 8. And now I can't simplify this anymore. This is in my simplest form. So my fraction equivalent, 0.375, can be written as 3/8. So yes, it is a rational number because I can write it in fraction form, and my fraction is 3/8. Let's try one more with a mixed number now. So number 1, is -6.38 a rational number? If you guys notice, it is a terminating decimal. It does not go on anymore. So this is terminating. So because it's terminating, I know I can write it as a fraction. So yes, it is a rational number. Now I do have a whole number here. I have my -6. So I'm going to put that off to the side first because I know my mixed number, my whole number is going to be -6. So now what I'm left with is 0.38. And how can I write this as a decimal? So first I want to go to my decimal place. This 8 is in the tenths, hundredths place. So my denominator is going to be 100. My numerator is 38. And I know I have to simplify. So what can I divide both 38 and 100 by? I can divide, let's just start with 2. We know these are both even numbers, so they're divisible by 2. 38 divided by 2 is 19. And 100 divided by 2 is 50. And this is in simplest form. I can't divide either of these numbers. There's no common denominator here. So my mixed number is -6 and 19/50. So this is my mixed number.